Good morning, guys. Welcome to our first lab walkthrough. So what I'm going to be doing with this is I'm going to take you through and show you a few things in the virtual labs, just to give you a heads up for what I'm looking for, what you might run into that might be weird, confusing, whatever. So I'll just walk you through what you're going to experience and what I would be looking for in doing this experiment myself. So I'm going to share my screen, and that way you can see what exactly I am going through when I do this experiment. You can watch this to see what I do, and if you want to do that, that's great. If you don't, if you get tired of doing this, that's perfectly fine. You can, I'm sure, capable of doing this on your own. So you're not required to watch me do this. I am here in ALEKS in the student view. I'm going to go to my assignments, and I will see that I have this lovely window that has my exam 1, exam 2, exam 3, virtual labs, and post labs. So I'm going to go into the virtual lab. Now I'm going to walk you through the virtual lab. I am not going to walk you through the post lab. I'm going to walk you through what I would do with the lab itself, and then I will show you sort of how I would set myself up to do the post lab. I'm not going to walk you through the post lab itself because that's a quiz for you to take. So here's what I would do with the first virtual lab, and I'll show you virtual lab 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'll come back and do virtual lab a little bit later, virtual lab 5. So each of these will have its own walkthrough. So here's the first virtual lab tutorial. So I'll come into this, it'll say, hey, this is what we're doing. This is your late penalty 20% daily. You get your best score. You can do this as many times as you want. Your final submission date is April 24th. That's the very last day you can turn it in. This is actually due on March 22nd. Okay. Remember, once you start, you have to finish it or save it for later before you can work on anything else. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and start. All right, we're working on a lab. Awesome. Now, your key concepts are going to be listed up here. This section contains key scientific concepts that will be covered in each simulation. Your overview section includes the general goals of the lab and an overview of the directions to be followed in the simulation. They include images and video where applicable. Scoring tells you what this section includes, the general scoring for the lab, and anything you need to know before you begin. May or may not exist for a given lab simulation. Contains tips specific to the simulation, for example, how to take a measurement. It may also include definitions, images, and video. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I swear to God, it happens every time I get on camera, and I don't know why. So now we're going to go ahead and go into the simulation itself. This particular one is designed to teach you how to walk through these experiments. So it's just meant to show you how these things work. So this is a general overview. It gives you these step-by-step instructions for the current phase. Each step must be completed correctly to continue to the next phase. And there's next here. So it says using the next button, cycle through and review descriptions of the screen areas. Select accessibility and keyboard shortcuts button in upper right corner. So back button exists in the current simulation. Okay, so we want to select this button right here. We want to select, and it says accessibility preference, list the key combination shortcuts for the simulation. Shortcuts allow those using any assistive technologies to select items by using the keyboard. Close the dialog to continue the tutorial. So if you need any of these things, this is how you would use them. Okay, I happen to use some of these things, so I have carpal tunnel. I've had surgery for it in the past, so I tend to use the keyboard shortcuts because they're a lot easier in my hand than working with the mouse. So I tend to use keyboard shortcuts for things like the lab data, and my notes tends to be a lot easier for me. So I have these written down, and I actually have I printed this, and I have a little card that I use for them sometimes, rather than using my mouse to do this. So you also have virtual cursor mode, so that's another thing that you can use. We can now close out of this, so have to use that. We can select methods from the toolbar. So we can click the methods guy right here. Methods list each of the phases and steps for the entire simulation. Once a phase is completed, that phase becomes a clickable link that will take you to that specific phase of the simulation. You cannot move ahead to phases out of order. Close this dialog to continue this tutorial. So general overview, and we'll tell you what the steps are for that. And then you'll see the next phase, and I'll talk about the lab basics and tell you what you'll have to do there. So this is everything you're gonna have to do this experiment, so you can see everything that you're going to be looking at in this particular lab. Okay, so this will give you an idea of what you have to do for everything. Okay, so select reset from the toolbar. This is your reset button right here. So if you make a mistake or you need to start this particular part of the lab over because of something that's going on, maybe you had something distract you, or my cat ran over my keyboard and I have to start this part over, then I can click this reset button and it'll reset. Now you can either reset the current phase, i.e. this part of the lab that I need to do over, or I can reset the entire simulation. If I want to start over because I want to do some, I made a mistake and I just want to start the whole thing over, then I can do that. So I can do either just this screen or the entire thing. So I have that option. Right now, I just want to cancel this because I didn't really want to do that. So I'm going to cancel. Now I can select to go to phase 2. So I'm going to click this button down here because it says select go to phase 2. Sorry. And what it says is, but I haven't done everything right yet. Okay, so I haven't done everything that I was supposed to do. And so it says I didn't do the first step right, and I haven't done steps 6, 7, 8, and 9. So I can't do that yet. So I have to do all of those things before I can go to the next phase. So I got to close this. So using the next button, cycle through and review descriptions in the screen areas. That's the first thing. Select My Notes from the toolbar. There you can take any notes that you want to take. So if you're walking through this and you say, hey, I'm not sure what I'm doing. I think this is about learning how to use this. I don't really know. Maybe I should stop and ask Dr. Hartley. This is a note that I might want to take. Okay, and I can close this, or I could print this. I can close this and say, okay, that was the note that I wanted to take, and I'm going to exit out of this so I can come back in. And I may have specific questions that I want to come back to my instructor with, and then I have those written down in my notes. And so when I come back to this, I can say, Dr. Hartley, I had these questions. Can you help me with this? So this is a place where I can do that. So this is outside of anything that I'm going to be writing down for lab data, but it's a place for me to take notes. So it's just a place where I can write stuff down that I might, observe. I mean, it's not necessarily part of my lab notebook. Sorry. So the lab notebook where I'm taking down information that I want to store related to the experiment, but a place for me to write down stuff where I'm confused. I don't know what's going on. I'm making notes about what I do and don't understand, what might be happening, that kind of thing. Okay. So that's different than when we talk about lab data. So when I click the lab data, this is where I'm going to record anything that goes with what's going on in the laboratory. Okay. So this is where I write down all of my original observations that go with a particular lab. Now, when we talk about lab data is an original observation of what you observed in the laboratory. There are a lot of rules about how we record this stuff. So what you'll notice is that this data is set up so that it lists what the data is and what the units are for recording it. And so you'll write your numbers in these boxes, right? When you do this in an actual lab notebook that you're taking, you would have to write down all of this information. We're very particular about how we write this down. It's supposed to be written in blue pen, not black. That way we can tell the difference between the original and a photocopy that might be made from that. It's not supposed to be written in the fun colors that I like to write in, so like pink and purple, things like that, because that's not a professional color. Okay, so it should be a professional documentation. It's supposed to be, if you make a mistake in it, you're supposed to write a single line through it, initial it, and date it to indicate that you made a mistake. Yes, you can still read whatever that mistake was. So you still can see that data because you might actually not have made a mistake. You think you made a mistake, but you may not have actually made a mistake. So you might need that data again. So you don't want to obliterate it. You don't want to white it out. You need to be able to read it again in case you actually needed it. So you need to single line through it, initial it, and date it to indicate that you're the one who wrote through it. You're the one who did it on this date at this time, on this date. So you're the one who did it. You did it on this date. Those are all legal documentations to say when this was done. Okay. And that has to do with like who did what at what, on what date. That has a lot to do with who made the observations first, who found this thing first. So like in cases of patent, who discovered things first or who observed things first, we need to know the dates that go with that. Right? So that's why it's important that we note those dates. Right? When we do laboratory work and we're done with a page, we need to have that countersigned by another scientist to state that they observed that we made these notations on this particular date. Now, they may not do it the same day that we did it, but it needs to be done very soon after that. So at companies that I've worked for, they either had to do it on the same day or by the end of that week. Okay? So that was a legal requirement so that we would have records of when that data was taken. Okay, so that's again a legal requirement for how we deal with that. I also had to have other people review my data to make sure that I hadn't made any mistakes in it, so that they could follow what I had done and make sure that they understood what had been done. Because if they didn't understand what I had done, I had to go back and clarify that. Because unfortunately, it's not usually you that's reading that data in a court case. It's normally somebody else. Okay? So we need to make sure that that data is legible and it's understandable by someone else. And that's why somebody else has to review it. So these are all things that are part of keeping a lab notebook and keeping that information. So that lab notebook is designed so that someone else can repeat what you've done in the laboratory. There should be enough information in that lab notebook for them to be able to do the same experiment that you did without you having to stand there and explain it to them. Okay? So that's the real reason that we keep lab notebooks. And we don't force you to keep a lab notebook. Okay? If this were a physical class, you wouldn't be keeping a lab notebook. We don't do that for 110. We expect you to keep data tables. Okay, so you record the data and we have a description of how you collected that data in the lab manual. And then we just have a table for you to record that data. Okay, when you get into 111, we start asking you to keep a lab notebook where you write down your observations in addition to what you did. Okay, and then if you go into higher level classes like organic, you have to have an actual lab notebook where you write down everything and then write a lab report about it. And that's to teach you proper lab notebook techniques. Right? Anyway, I've preached enough about lab notebooks. So this is where you record all of that stuff about lab data. So those are different observations than the notes that you would be taking to say, I don't understand what's going on. And this is observations that you've made, data that you collected, and all of it has to be done at the time that you took it. So if you go over to an instrument, you need to write it down when you go over there. So that lab notebook needs to put anything that you observed. And if it's not what you expect, you need to write down, this isn't what I thought would happen. Now, it may be that that's what's supposed to happen, but it's not what you thought would happen. Okay, so you should be recording that. Right? So now we can close out this. Right? We can select show labels. So there's a thing that's here that says show labels, and it will show you what, hey, this is hydrogen peroxide. This is our catalase. Okay, and it says catalase. Thermometer, glass rods, ice water, test tube rack, test tube. So it'll show you what all those things are. Sometimes we don't know exactly what these things are because they aren't well described. So we may need to know what they are. And then we can select submit button in the upper right hand corner. So we can submit. And at any time you can submit the simulation for partial credit, and you've not finished the simulation by submitting, you will be able to make any further progress. And I can say, no, I didn't actually want to do that. So I'm going to click this so I can toggle between the introduction and the laboratory simulation at any time. Right, this is the title. These are the toolbar, and here's the phase navigation. And now I can say, well, let's go to phase 2. And I still haven't done the first phase yet, but I haven't finished it because I haven't toggled through everything that was there. So now I have done everything, and now I can do that. And now everything has been saved, and now I'm on the second part. This is phase 2, the lab basics. So it says to click on the H2O2 dropper to pick it up. Place the dropper over the test tube and click on the test tube to add 4 milliliters of H2O2. So I'm going to click here and then click on the bottle of H2O2 to return the dropper. Why is the experiment performed at 37 degrees? And it's asking me a question because 37 degrees is near typical human body temperature, and this helps me understand how well this enzyme functions at the temperature it is normally found, or because 37 degrees is more than 25 degrees and multiple values are needed for this experiment. Okay, I don't know, maybe it's this one, maybe it's that one. It says it selected this one, so I'm going to say submit. While it is true that you need multiple values for this experiment, 37 degrees was chosen for a specific reason, but it wouldn't let me change it before. So, hey, submit. Okay, great job. That's correct. Yes, awesome. Okay. I can click this to zoom in. So now I can see exactly what's going on. And I can select the lab data. And so it calculates at 37 degrees, the volume of bubbles, enter 0 for volume of bubbles of catalase at that temperature. So I see 0. Volume entered is out of the expected range. Did you report your data to the correct number of significant figures? If you enter data outside the normal range, or if you report your value with the incorrect number of significant figures, you'll receive a warning. You can choose to change the data or ignore the warning and keep your data as it is. If you ignore the warning, it may lower your lab score. Enter the actual measured bubble volume, 5.0 million. So it says I made a mistake. So I'm going to back this out. And I'm going to roll this up. And what I'm actually looking at right here is 5.0. Okay, I don't necessarily see that, but okay, it says 5.0. So your data was auto-saved. Close lab data. So we can close that. Right? And measure the volume of bubbles recorded. And then I go to the next phase. Cool. Awesome. All right. Now, virtual lab tutorial. Some simulations may include a graphing phase. So select temperature for the x-axis. So on my x-axis, I want temperature. Select bubble volume for the y-axis. And then select line graph for the graph type. And say create. And then click save. And then I can click the go to the next phase. Oh, awesome, I did it. Okay, and it says that the lab is complete. Your score is 100%. Click submit. So I can click submit. Are you sure you want to submit? Yes. Now at this point, I'm done. Now I can go back and I can say, all right, I want to look at the report. And I'm in study mode, so I can look at any of the stuff that's in here. Okay. And so I can go back and I want to look at everything that I did. So I can do that. I want to go back and say, okay, I want to see this. How do I do that? So I can go back and look at this introduction. I can go back to the laboratory simulation. I can see that there are three phases. This is the phase resets. I didn't do any. There were pop-up questions and there was collected lab data. Now, normally what I'll be able to do is look at all of the stuff that I had. So I can say, okay, here's the pop-up questions. Here's the collected data that I had. Here's all the save graph, all of this stuff. And I can see it says print. So I can do a print and I can say, okay, print to PDF. And I go ahead and print this. And I say, I want to print this Virtual Lab 1. And I'm going to print this to the place that I print most of my stuff, which is yep. And I just print that. Okay, fine. Now I come into my lovely OneNote. I say I want to put this in here. And so I'm going to go ahead and come in here and I'm going to say I want to put that printout in here. And so I'm going to include a file. Take that file that I just printed. What did I just do? I thought I knew where to put it. Of course, I don't. And so I put that file in here and this is my printout. Now, why did I do that? Well, I did that because that's going to help me when I go to this next thing, which is going to be that post lab. So when I go into that post lab, I may need to know some information from this to be able to answer questions on that post lab. And so if I have a printout, then that will show me how to do this. Okay. Now, there may be some other things in that lab that I did, in the simulation that I did, that I might need to know. Now, in this one, I can't show you that, but when I get to that, I will show you what I mean about what I'm talking about. For this one, I'm done. So I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, I'm done. So I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to stop this one and I will be back with you shortly. So thanks, guys, and I'll talk to you soon.